It really is a great pleasure to have you both here. Karen Kane, Artistic Director of the National Ballet of Canada from Toronto, live from Toronto, and Rex Harrington, Artist in Residence with the company. Of course, both former principal dancers for a number of years with the company and both having guested with many, many companies around the world. We are, of course, at the National Arts Centre launching our 50th anniversary, 2019. And Karen, it was great to realize, of course, we didn't plan it this way, but we did our first NAC Dance audio podcast with you 10 years ago in 2009. And today marks number 50.
Wow.
So there you go.
Whoa.
Talk about good math.
There you go.
I didn't think about that in 2009, but thank you very much. So, and we will do more with you in the future as we celebrate your own milestones as well. But let's just talk about the National Ballet and the NAC. You both have performed here many times. So looking back at these years and years of collaboration, Karen, maybe we can start with you. What do you think about how do these relationships between organizations like National Ballet and the NAC continue and maintain their strength?
Well, it's like a second home in a way, because it's regular every single year. We come to Ottawa. And I think that Kathy Levy and her amazing programming have educated the Ottawa public tremendously. They see more, I think, than Toronto sees in terms of international dance and major companies and smaller and exciting companies. And so we know it's a knowledgeable public. We know it's the center, it's Canada's capital. We know it's a very important place. And we love to be here. I mean, it's every year, it's regular, it's more performances for my dancers, which I feel they never get enough of. It's a very positive relationship we have with the NAC.
Rex?
Well, as I was saying the other day, I think that it is like coming home, and it's a capital, and the audiences, jokingly, I was saying that many, many years ago, when we would perform, it was so hard to know whether the audience were even enjoying it because no one was clapping or the applause was so muted, and you thought, oh, it must be a government town. Everyone's just getting off work and, they've got the tickets and they don't even know what they're watching. And I think that's what's so wonderful to be coming here now is to, like Karen said, you have an educated audience and you've educated them, and they do get world-class companies. So they see all this different contemporary work, classical work, they see the best in the world. And I think now, listening last night from the overwhelming reception, it was exciting to be here and dancing here in this time, and especially in this renovated theater. It's so beautiful. So it's really great to have that relationship with the NAC and coming back and seeing people like yourself and people that I've known for years. It's always exciting. Even some of the crew, it's great to feel like you're home, second home.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. And I think the audience feels like you're their resident company.
Yeah.
We don't have a major ballet company in Ottawa. And I think that
we are the National Ballet of Canada.
You are the National Arts Centre. Karen, I know that you joined the company shortly after the debut performance on June 2nd, 1969, which I can remind people was actually the National Ballet of Canada performing Cranach on the opening night, and then Romeo and Juliet, I believe, the very next night.
Right.
But can you share with us some stories, funny or otherwise, of your time here at the National Arts Centre, what you remember about performing?
Well, I have lots of memories of dancing with Rex, that's for sure. I think we did just about everything in the repertoire of the National Ballet of Canada over many, many years. Romeo and Juliet in the old version, not the Alexei Ratmansky version, which I don't think we've done in Ottawa yet, but so we did the Cranach version. I remember the opening of the Sleeping Beauty. That was the very first performances of Sleeping Beauty with Rudolf Nureyev were at the National Arts Centre. Don't remember what year that was, but it was a very long time, early 70s, very long time ago. That was incredibly exciting. That was like the biggest, most luxurious ballet we had ever had in our repertoire. It was spectacular. And we had Rudolph, who was still in his prime at the beginning of the 70s. And, that was a very exciting time for the National Ballet. But I honestly think we have danced just everything in our repertoire in Ottawa, except,
almost.
Almost.
We did have the Romeo and Juliet here several years ago, and we are looking forward to bringing it again. Spoiler alert, very soon down the road.
Okay,
but
I forgot. Thanks.
Yeah, no, it's okay. You know, what's really interesting to be reminded of too, Karen, of course, is through your dancing years, there were all of the big classics, but you and I have had many conversations also about bringing the new work, bringing the mixed rep. Rex, I remember you dancing Four Seasons here when it was relatively new in the repertory of the National Ballet. Can you tell us a little bit, Rex, about your moments on stage? You shared some funny stories with the audience last night.
Yeah, it's not your biggest triumphs, it's your smaller failures that you sort of remember. And when I was thinking about dancing here and all the shows I did my last, when I was retiring, I did Eugene Onegin here. And I was dancing with Martine Lamy. And it's funny, at the time CBC had a wonderful show called The Life and Times. So they were filming my documentary about my life and times and my retirement. And so they weren't allowed to film the actual performance, but they got a lot of the backstage drama. And they got a lot of drama because I was dancing with Martine in the bedroom pas de deux, and where she's dreaming about Onegin. He comes through the window and she's wearing her nightdress. And we were doing this series of, they're very difficult flip lifts to the floor. She comes running at you, throw her in the air, drop her to the floor. And
drop her gently.
Drop her gently, which I remember doing with Karen, no fear whatsoever, fabulous. And so we had done those, and then you pull her up and she does this big bourrée, and then you go for this one-handed lift, and she said, Rex, my dress is undone. And so on the flips, the dress had totally opened. The whole back of the dress had come open. And I said, well, just bourrée or something. And we're center stage. And so she was bourréing madly in lots of arms and gesticulations. And it felt like 10 minutes, but it probably wasn't. And I'm behind her doing up her dress center stage as the music swelled. Hopefully the conductor stretched. And then we got into the lift. And then I just remember, it's on tape, me coming back, just this overly excited person screaming in the wings, just like, oh my God, did you see that? So it's always those moments you sort of remember. And I remember, dancing for Prime Minister Trudeau, and, so there's wonderful, wonderful memories like that.
Yeah.
I have a memory of Margaret Trudeau photographing Romeo and Juliet from the wings. Oh, wow. And I guess that was the Krenko version before we got the Ratmansky version too. I don't know what year that was, but she was very young, and I still have some. She gave me copies of some of the pictures, and they were very, cool. Very beautiful.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Karen, you also, of course, danced here as a principal dancer for many years, and you did, when you were retiring, you did your fantastic project, The Actress, across the country, and came to the NAC. I believe you performed in about 7 different cities. I'm just curious if you and Rex, you were part of that program, doing Herman Schmerman and doing The Actress. I'd love to be reminded of what that was like for the two of you. It must have been very emotional for both of you after years of dancing together and doing that program. We're thrilled that it came to the NAC. I remember seeing it at Place des Arts in Montreal and just being completely moved and taken with it. Do you recall certain things about that in Ottawa?
Well, I remember that the ballet was incredibly demanding in terms of emotional and physical stamina, because I didn't stop for the entire hour. And when you're the center of something, you have to be animated and interesting for the whole time. You can't take a little breather in the corner while someone else does something. It was, stamina-wise, it was really, really difficult. But what helped me was the relationship with the different characters who come into the actress's life. And Rex and I had this very, very beautiful pas de deux. It was near the end in my memory. I don't know, but and it was, it was very special. And James Skadelka created this specifically for me. I don't think it would make any sense ever for anyone else to perform it, because it was, in a way, just a kind of series of memories of things that I had gone through, or exaggerated and made more interesting by James's imagination. And the music was very, very beautiful. I was very fortunate to have that experience and to get to go across the country one more time and say goodbye to the public that had watched me for so many years. So, I'm very grateful for that experience.
That was filmed, wasn't it? We could probably see that somewhere.
I don't think so.
I'm not sure.
No,
I
just
know. I
archive?
know there is some footage of it somewhere.
Well, there's clips of it, but the whole thing wasn't filmed.
It must have been an emotional time for you too, knowing after many years that was going to be your last series of partnership performances with Karen.
I mean, I always say I was very, very fortunate to have danced with Karen, and to, she sort of brought me up. And at the time, I was this persnickety young kid with a big ego, as she likes to tell me.
And now?
And now I'm still the same, but just older in jowls. And it was great to delve into that relationship with Karen. And I think that, I helped her and she helped me. And we both became, after to go after the Gold Dust twins, which was Kane and Augustine, and then to have Kane and Harrington, and to have all those memories and wonderful careers. And I think dancing with Karen was so special on any stage, just because we both had a certain attack and musicality. And I never was afraid to go on stage with Karen because I just knew that we were going to just go out there and, wow in our own capacity, in our own way. And being on the NAC stage, it's also it's such a at the time we were dancing at the Sony Center, which is very different. It was called the Barn, and to have this wonderful theater with the balconies like a real opera house, and it's a huge stage. But I was really thankful that I got to have that wonderful career in Canada and with Karen. I mean, I had the opportunities to go elsewhere, but I always felt proud about being a Canadian and staying in Canada and having the opportunities to go outside and travel the world. So it was very special.
I don't think people realize how that bond of partnership with principal dancers develops.
Well,
I think
I've always said it's like a marriage without sex, but then some people say that's a marriage after 50 years. But but I also joke about it too, in a sense that I retired and I sort of went to Karen after 2 years of doing other things, and I asked for a job, and I had to go to my ex-partner and say, can I have a job? And that now that Karen is my boss, and we've gone through, even as I'm working for Karen, I'm on the staff, that's been another learning curve and another relationship change and a different set of challenges. And I think now it's taken me a while, but I think we've gotten to that place too that is almost like our partnership was in dance, and I feel really part of her team and helping the new generation. It's exciting.
Karen, did you think when you stopped dancing that you would continue having a role in the field, or did you contemplate doing something completely different?
I had no idea what I was going to do. I was just in mourning. I didn't know what I was going to do. And then Jiří Kylián invited me to come and work with NDT3 for a year. So I was back and forth, and that was brilliant.
NDT3 being a company of older dancers, senior artists. Thank you.
Yes. And so that was so thrilling, and it sort of helped me through into the next chapter of my life. But I've never planned anything. I've always just somehow the opportunities have presented themselves.
Karen Kane just lucked out, didn't she?
I sure did.
You worked really hard.
Sure
Luck out.
No, I worked hard and I gave it everything, but I didn't. I was given so many opportunities by so many people along the way, and just because I wasn't really motivated except by the opportunities to do something new and interesting, and to do some things at a level that I didn't imagine I could get to, but other people thought I could, and they pushed me there. So I had Nureyev, I had Brun, I had Neumeier, I had like all of these, Glenn Tetley, all of these incredible people who took me under their wings and were generous and pushed me as hard as they could and saw things in me that I didn't see in myself. I was always actually, Rex, you probably know this, extremely anxious, not very confident, and I had to rely on other people's confidence in me. Fortunately, I think I've finally gotten a bit better at that. But there I was. Every time I felt that I didn't know what I was doing in this career and I wasn't very good, and someone would come along and see something in me and give me an opportunity, and I could fly again. And I must say, since we're talking with Rex, that when he joined the company as a very young man, and I watched him, and of course he was so tall and handsome and And but
Go
what
on.
what I found out was that he had this innate gift for magical partnering. Now, he can now teach it because he knows what he did, and he knows how to make things work for the woman, and he knows how to, he's musical, which is extremely important to any partnership. But, you know, I danced with him and he was just, I don't know, were you 18 when you joined the company?
20. 21,
okay.
20,
okay. Yeah. But he knew how to partner better than many very experienced partners. So I lucked out to have the opportunity to work with Rex. And he really gave me a lot of wonderful, because you can't do certain roles if you don't have a good match in the leading characters.
And we both had very large heads physically, so we looked good together.
We had
on
large
stage.
heads.
Yes, they say if you have a large head, you're going to be a movie star or a star. So there you go.
Oh, there you go. I'll keep that in mind. Did you ever bang into each other as a result of your large heads?
There was also a real passion and a sexuality when Karen and I danced. I remember doing some of the Tetley ballets and Daphnis and Chloe, and you know, it was very sensual and and I was never afraid to go there. And Karen and I connected, and I remember her mother. She would tell me that her mother couldn't watch; she had to close her eyes because it was just too much. And, you know, Ross would come on stage and his big joke after Romeo and Juliet was, did you perform tonight? I said, yes, I was kissing your wife. I was like, you know, it's been a fun career. It'll all be in my book.
This is a hard one maybe to ask, but do you have a favorite pas de deux that you did together? I mean, I'm sure there are many, but is there one that's, you know, stands out as something particularly stellar?
Well, Rex mentioned the Glenn Tetley. Well, that was very sensuous. But I remember loving to do the Cranko Romeo and Juliet with Rex. I felt that was very us.
Yes, I remember it too, because I mean, I was never a great technician. I mean, what these young dancers can do today, I only wish I could do half of what they do technically. I mean, I was a very passionate partner, and you know, I had a basic technique, I would think. And I always remember the balcony pas de deux. I would go and get Karen, and in Crankos, you have this 3-stage, you know, getting her down to the ground before you can dance. You go up and you lift her down on one, you lift her down on the other, and you sit her on the rock, and then you look at her lovingly, and you come over and you back away, and then you do this run double assemblée attitude. And I'd always run back to her, and she's like, good boy. I was like, thank you. Like, I survived. I didn't fall over, you know? And this is, you know, years.
What the audience doesn't know.
The audience didn't know, but this is years later. I mean, I'd always tease Karen too. My very first review of Balcony pas de deux with Karen was, I think Frank had been injured or something. I had just joined the company. I had done nothing yet, really. I was in the Corps de Ballet, and I don't know if she asked me, or the director, Eric, or somebody said, will you do this gala in Hamilton with Karen? And she's Hamilton's queen, right? And Gary Smith.
Her birthplace?
Yeah, Gary Smith, the critic. So I was so nervous, and I just remember, I got through it, and I just remember shaking. Like, I put my hand out, I could see it shaking as I'm walking, and I'm just like a nervous wreck. And we got through it, and I did it. And how the show worked with the symphony was, you do the show one night, and then music plays, and then the next night, of course, a review came out, and someone very kindly put it on my dressing room, And so before the second night, I'm reading it, and I'm like, all I saw was a nervous young boy struggling to keep up with a mature ballerina on the edge of her steely technique. So the tears started flowing, and I had to go out and do a pas de deux again. And I just remember during the bows, I was like pushing her forward and like, oh, you know, so it's there's all those things that come flooding back when you think about it. But I mean, certainly, I mean, anything. I love dancing the character. I mean, but you know, funnily enough, I mean, Karen and I were all tits and teeth when we did Don Q. You know, we challenged each other. We're like, let's go. It wasn't a ballet that we should be doing, but we did it. You know, it was like, you know, I would go across the stage with my 3 pirouettes, and she'd do her single flottes or whatever. We were out there just giving it all, you know. So I remember moments, and, you know, challenging her, like she'd go jeté and passé, and she'd have to balance, and she'd be wanting my hand out, and I wouldn't put it out. I said, no, you're going to stay. We're going to be fabulous. And then I'd give it to her, and, you know, so we had that passion.
The behind the scenes secrets. Do you remember these things, Karen?
I do. Oh my God. So many adventures with Rex.
Yeah.
But lots of fun too.
You know, I mean, of course, the National Ballet for many years was known for all of these great classics. We've mentioned several of them: Sleeping Beauty, Swan Lake, Romeo and Juliet. And now the company is, over the last many years, particularly under your direction, Karen, really extending the repertoire, doing more contemporary works, commissioning original pieces. Karen, you and I have talked about the thrill of being able to bring a triple bill now to Ottawa and in Toronto and have as much interest for it as there had been in the past, only for name ballets. But why is it important for an organization like the National Ballet to keep diversifying its offering and keep looking at these kind of programs?
Well, I really take a lot from my predecessors, and from Celia Franca originally. She always did a lot of different work, and work that showcased her dancers at the time. And then she's the one who brought in, well, maybe Rudolph. She brought in Rudolph, even though I think that was aligning us with Rudolph and Sol Hurok, the presenter at that time, was a way to get her company on the international stage. There was no other way to do it. There was no interest in having the National Ballet of Canada at the Metropolitan Opera House in New York. We could go to little, suburban centers and dance around the U.S., but we were considered a local regional company, and that always made me angry, quite frankly. And that's really been a driving force in my directorship now, is that I think at this point in time, the National Ballet of Canada is absolutely at one of the best companies in the world, at the very top. And that to have the critics, the music critics, the dance critics, and the theater critics of Paris name the National Ballet of Canada as the best company of the year when we took Nijinsky there. For me, that is, that has been sort of an exclamation point on my goals for this company, because it is the caliber of the dancers, and they have to have the kind of rep that challenges them and helps them grow and inspires them. And they have to show how versatile they are. And a program like last night, shows the depth of talent. There were a lot of debuts going on last night. There were young dancers almost directly out of school, performing with seasoned principals and looking like they belonged there. And I have so much talent in the company. So I forget what the question is now, but my goals have been to keep us at an international level. And right now, I think we are beyond some of what the international companies are doing. The level of the dancing and the quality of the repertoire and the diversity of the repertoire. Great dancers have to be able to do it all. They just can't be pigeonholed in, doing one particular role or two or a particular style. They have to be able to do it all in a company like this.
I think, Karen, what you've brought to the company is that your relationships with people like John Newmar and people outside, that you have personal relationships that you've allowed them to come in and work with a company that has propelled us, and having that far-reaching vision of bringing people in. I think that's something that you deserve, kudos and bravas for, because you've really expanded, where we are in the world, and we're back in Paris, or back in New York, or back in London, or
going to Russia for the first time,
San Francisco and Russia, and that's all due to Karen. So that's and her ability to see what people need, and her career and the people that she worked with. So it's also
about going after Justin Peck and going after Crystal Plate and giving opportunities to young people. I mean, I remember when I was studying.
But they also want to come here now because of who we are, which is great.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember years ago when I was studying in New York, was one of the first times, I think it was the New York City Ballet brought in Carol Armitage, who was, seen as a contemporary choreographer. And this whole idea of bringing in people from a non-classically trained field to work with classically trained dancers was quite new 15, 20 years ago, I think. And it's really, I believe when I look at your company and others, that it's really opened up the language and the communication that classical ballet, which has got a very traditional point of view, perhaps, has been able to have with its audience.
Yes. And also, if you want to attract the best artists and keep the best artists, you have to give them the kind of rep that challenges them and motivates them. And I don't want all the young graduates from the National Ballet School always leaving because they think that the repertoire is more interesting elsewhere. Or else they leave and then they come back and say, actually, we like the National Ballets better. No, that's what motivates me. That's what gets me out of bed every morning is how can we continue to hold our place amongst the very best in the world.
And you are touring a lot more. I mean, of course, we've talked about the fact that we're so grateful and lucky and want to continue this fantastic relationship for the National Ballet to come here every year and bring as much repertoire as possible to the NAC. But as Rex mentioned, you're traveling to other places. So you're going to some of the great centers in the world where there are other ballet companies. Do you feel like you're always compared and always sort of looked at? You know, you go to San Francisco or you go to Russia or you go to Paris, as you mentioned. Is it always in reference to who's there, or are people just looking at the National for the unique qualities that you bring?
Well, I think many times they're discovering the National Ballet of Canada. They maybe have heard of it, but it's like, oh, the National Ballet. I mean, I don't think necessarily San Francisco, thanks to the generosity of the artistic director there, Helgi Thomason, he's invited us a few times, but usually it's been with a smaller piece. And this time, to be able to take Nijinsky there and just kind of wow the audiences and to play a week, to do that many shows was very special for all of us. And the response.
Yeah, the response was amazing. I remember coming out after the shows and just there was almost small groups of people there who said, you know, I've never actually thought about the National Ballet of Canada, but to see your company are one of the best in the world. And they were so taken aback with the purity and the quality of the acting. And you know, when I was dancing, I remember going to see other companies and, you know, especially in the classics to see they put, you know, 20-year-olds on stage as the mother or the king but that's something the National Ballet has as well. We have seasoned performers that have been, you know, Laszlo Sermayan, who's out there. He's been in the company over 60 years or whatever it is, and he's still doing Nutcracker, or Lorna Geddes, or, you know, now myself, I go on and do some character roles. And to have that kind of flavoring within the company also sets us apart, I think, in the fact that we have the ability to fill the spectrum of all positions within the company from character roles. And you have to be able to do nowadays the classics and the contemporary in a way that, you know, that's what's so exciting last night about watching this performance was you have brand new Justin Peck, then you have from the 20s Balanchine, this avant-garde for its time that still stands the test of time in its simplicity and beauty of, you know, physical classical ballet. And then you have The Dream, which is a story ballet with sets and costumes. And, you know, you see a real all those girls running around beautifully and lovely footwork and you have the orchestra here and we have Ormsey Wilkins back, and it was just a really exciting night.
Karen, you curated that show sort of specially for our kickoff 50th anniversary and to bring a variety of the work, as Rex just pointed out. What is it for you when you put together a mixed program like that you think of? I mean, is it particularly about coming to the NAC or about the dancers that you have to do particular roles, or the music, or all those things?
Yeah, it's all those things. But sometimes, quite frankly, it comes down to practicality. If we want to do the very best performances everywhere we go, we have to have adequate rehearsal time to bring everyone up to a level. Mm-hmm. And when you're debuting brand new youngsters who are extremely talented but need even more preparation than more seasoned dancers. So this was a combination. I made this program because we were going to do Apollo in Toronto soon. So I thought, well, we can get it ready for Ottawa, and then the dancers will get even more chance to do it, because they love to do mixed programs because it's more interesting for them and there are more roles for more people in a mixed program. And I'm trying to develop the younger, really talented ones and provide interesting roles for the more senior artists. As Rex was saying, Paz we did it in Russia. So it wasn't done that long ago, so we could remount it fairly quickly. And Dream we did in Toronto in November, and we haven't done it for 17 years. And it was so joyful to see it again. It stands up it's so demanding, it's so beautiful, and it's so enchanting. And our dancers love to do it, and we have so many good Pucks and so many good Oberons and so many good Titanias that I wanted to give them more chances at it. And So it's a very diverse program, but it shows all of the talent in the company. And every night there are new people doing different parts. So
yeah, that's what I was saying. Sorry, Karen.
No,
just watching Apollo last night. You have Brendan making his debut, and then we have Janine Haller, who's 22, who was beautiful, and Miyoko Kuyasu, and then Heather Ogden, who is an experienced, ballerina, and she's also worked with Suzanne Farrell, and she knows that style, and they all held their own. It was really exciting. And then I even told Sipe, who was doing Puck, he was extraordinary. Even Harrison, they were all extraordinary, but Sipe, who's 20, I believe, 21, young, and taking on this really challenging role. And I said, it was so great to see you do it again, because even just in this short span that you did shows in Toronto, it's even better now, and you're more, so that's the thing about keeping these things in the rep and bringing them and having them almost in your back pocket, and then making sure everyone, especially in Ottawa, gets to see them.
It was also really wonderful last night to see all these different characters, but particularly in the Dream, to see some of the sense of humor that some of those artists have. They can camp it up in such a beautiful way. They really connected with the audience. And
but it's funny because, I was coaching the Lovers, and Ben, who plays the more arduous one. And that goes to coaching, trying to get someone to trust you. And I said to him, there's a moment when he's very arduous and he goes down and he goes, "Kiss me," and she stops him. And then he does this over exaggerated, "Oh my God, but I'm so upset." And he was doing it sort of slow, and he wasn't getting a laugh. And I said, "Trust me, it's like slapstick. You just go, bah, like, oh my God, really sharp," and then down. And so after the rehearsal, we had a small invited audience for the dress rehearsal. He goes, "They didn't laugh." I said, "Oh, it's partly this theater as well. I know from being on the stage, you can't quite hear acoustically what's going on in the house." I said, "We did laugh." And even Chris Stoll, he said, "Oh, that's great." And I said, "Yeah, we were working on it." So in the show, I said, "Just go for it." And he did it. And I went, "See, they laughed," and they laughed. So, it's fun working with them and getting them to trust themselves and their instincts.
It must be so rewarding to coach and pass on all of that knowledge. It's like muscle memory and artistic memory.
And I even said to him, I said, "Okay, go with me for this, and if it doesn't work, then find your own way. I'm not locking you into it." But yeah, it's an interesting challenge, and that's what Karen about the partnering as well. For me, a lot of partnering was innate, and so when I watch someone and the girl's at a 45-degree angle or they're not on their leg, it's having to find what I do innately and helping them find their way of doing it. And that's the thing about dance. I've always thought that the ballerina, actually, she can only be as free as the partner behind her, right? Like if she's insecure or off her leg, she can't be free to dance. So that's what partnerships are about. And Ashton does some very tricky choreography, especially in the main pas de deux. But it's a fun ballet.
It's very exciting. I know I have to let you go, Karen, to catch a plane and come join us here in Ottawa. And this just makes me so excited for the future of ballet in general. It really does, and the National Ballet is an incredible example of that. And I just thought I could finish off by asking you, a small but important question. Just maybe you can share with us what would be your vision for the next many years of the National Ballet of Canada.
Oh, well, I think more of the same. I think expanding the repertoire, expanding the experience for our dancers and for our public.
Sorry. That was me telling I had to let you get in the plane.
I feel that our audiences are very engaged now with what the National Ballet of Canada is doing, and they are totally open-minded to all these very new and different experiences. And some of them I really worry about. Like I really worried about Anna Karenina because it's very demanding in every way. And the audiences were fantastic. But I think it's because they've been watching Norm Meyer ballets since the early 70s, and they've watched him develop as an artist, and they understand him more. And my artists, my dancers really understand him and really love to work with him. And but there's so many interesting choreographers out there who are expanding the range of what dancers can do and how audiences can feel and what the visuals are now. And then when you go back and look at the old work, it also has such beauty and charm. And if you have a company that has the ability to do it all, then you have to keep feeding them all of this kind of interesting work and see where it lands. But so far, I feel that that the dancers are coming along with it. They love it. And the public is also loving it. And that's crucial.
Well, I would toast and raise a big glass to the next 50 years of association between the National Ballet of Canada and the National Arts Centre. It's always such a great joy for us to present the company and to be with you on all your new adventures and the classics and the new work as well. So thank you so much for your fidelity and your partnership and all of the great things that you do for the company and for us in our dance season.
Thank you.
Have a safe trip.
Yeah, hope to see you soon.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.